I will try and kind of put a framework around all of this. I'm a business geek, so bear with me. My name is Ian Massey. You guys are good at that stuff. I'm good at that stuff. So, why can art and business come together? Now, I posed this question many years ago when I was with the Fremantle Chamber of Commerce. And I said to an audience of artists, look, we business people, in a very artist kind of way, we tend to say no margin, no mission. And there was a great deal of eye rolling, and I completely lost that audience. But it's true. If you've got something in you that needs to get out to the world, whatever your medium, if it's visual arts, if it's music, if it's literature, it's got to get out there. Then you've got to get rewarded in money for doing that, or you're simply not going to be able to, right? That's basically why we're here this evening. Can you take that passion, can you take that thing that's got to come out of you and make it pay so that you can spend your time, your quality time on that thing and not have to squeeze it in evenings and weekends. And that's where art and business come together. It's one way that art and business come together. It very often looks like art versus business, because if business, you've got all of that icky stuff with selling things and all of that weird stuff with profit and loss and so on. But in fact, they come together in more ways than that. And I just wanted to tell you briefly, if you have not come across this, there's a guy called Richard Florida, who's an American economist, a rock star economist. If you don't think there's such a thing as a rock star economist, you need to watch those people more carefully. He was Richard Florida, as in the state. He was a lock up your daughters type rock star economist. And his thesis, which he proved very effectively, was that economic prosperity flows to places that nurture and encourage artists. So when you get neighbourhoods rehabilitated from old industrial zones, or you get brown dying towns starting to reinvigorate themselves, the pioneering push is what he called the core creatives. So yes, visual artists, musicians, people who write, writers of all kinds, but he also included architects and designers. He defined it quite broadly. And it really happens. Once you get people like that coming into a region, a neighbourhood, a place, it starts to get cool, it starts to get vibrant, it starts to get interesting. The coffee suddenly gets a whole lot better. And you know what? That's exactly what's happening to us in the Southwest. By fostering the creative arts that we have here in the Southwest, and we have filmmakers, and we have superb galleries, and we have theatre, we have all of the arts vibrant and happening here in the Southwest, and it's bringing prosperity to us. So again, art and business intersect in surprising ways. If we have the next slide, please. So to get to the nitty-gritty, how do you make this happen for you? I talk about business growth a lot, and that's not because I think everyone should be aiming to take over the world. It's not because my favourite businesses are the so-called unicorns that go from like nowhere to listed on the New York Stock Exchange in 3 years. I think that's crap. I think if you've got a business that's meeting your needs and supporting a lifestyle you love while doing work that you love, then that's a successful business. But as a business advisor, what I see is that far too many of the businesses are not at that optimal size. They do still need to grow. So that's why I frame it all in terms of growth. You don't have to think of it in Victoria.
I just missed that line that you finished off there.
Too many of the businesses that I see
Yeah.
are not yet at their optimal size.
Okay.
They're not yet rewarding the owner, the founder, the family, whoever it is, in the way that they can and should. Which is why I tend to look at things through a lens of growth quite a lot. Not because everything should grow all the time, nothing except cancer grows all the time, but because most of us need businesses that are a bit bigger than where they are today. Yep. And this is our secret sauce at Upland Consulting. It's the 4 truths of business growth. So one of these was actually the topic I was set today, and I will focus on that, but I'm going to touch on all 4 of them first. First of all, growth in the business comes from working on, not working in. Now, we all know this in our hearts, right? You're the best plumber in the world, maybe I'm the best potter in the world, You do more plumbing, I do more potting. Neither of us is growing a business. All that happens when we try and head down that path is the treadmill wears out more quickly. Okay. What the best plumber in the world needs to be doing in order to get more of their plumbing out to the people who need it is to step back from that business and do the work on, in terms of developing it, in terms of strategy, in terms of better financial controls and so forth. Yep. We all know this, and it still bowls me over every week of my working life. Someone comes along and says, well, if I could just do more, harder, faster, then I would grow the business. No, you're just going to burn out quicker. The second truth of business growth is it starts with why. It's the purpose question. Why are you really doing this? If you're an artist, let's say you're a painter, let's say you're a sculptor, you paint because you have to. You sculpt because you have to. There are people like that in business too. Whether you'll believe it or not, but there are people who have a business inside them that has to come out and find expression. So we don't usually have to dig very far to find purpose, except that, because I'm a business geek, I go around things like chambers of commerce, networking events and things like that and say, what are you in business for? And you know what purpose is? I say, well, I'm in business to make money. Duh. And they're not. Money is only ever the means to the end. You dig a little bit and money is just what gets you to the real purpose. Money is just the enabler, the rocket fuel that makes it possible. So the real power that will take your business from where it is to where it ought to be, so that what's in you is getting out there to the world, is in your purpose. It's in your why. It's the second of our four truths. The third one is that you're going to make it on your own. And this is actually the topic that I was sent. I'm supposed to be talking about business coaching, and I will. But you hear this all the time at prize givings, awards, winning speeches, wrap-up nights, end of terms, whatever it is. Everybody who has done anything outstanding in sport, politics, the arts, in business, if they're honest, they'll put their hand on their heart and say, I couldn't have done it alone. They've all got a support team around them. And that is what we, all of us, absolutely need. Now we all know, don't we? The job of an artist, or a budding musician, or a poet, is to starve on their own in a garret. Yeah. I know for sure there's not a symphony in me whenever I skip a few meals, so that works. But the truth of growing a business is that you're just not going to be able to do it on your own. You're going to need expert advisors, like accountants. You're going to need a cheer squad. You're going to need a shoulder to cry on, because some days you're just going to be not good for anything but crying on a shoulder. You're going to need people who will jolly you along. You're going at some stage to need someone who's got that coaching input, whose job it is to bring out what's best in you. In just the same way that you don't get to play violin in a symphony orchestra unless you spend a long, long time with a violin coach. Same in business. Doesn't take quite so long, but it's the same principle. And the fourth of our truths of business growth is that business growth and personal growth go hand in hand. You're not going to get the one without the other. Building a business is something that will test you and extend you, and you later spoke about it, like, in many ways, like nothing else. It's certainly going to stretch your horizons. It's going to force you to grow as a person. And unless you're up for that, unless you're going to grow and change, your business isn't going to grow either. So those are the four truths. I'm going to home in on another three because that's what I was asked to do. Excuse me. And in some ways it is my favourite because it's so easy to neglect. Because people go into business somehow assuming that everything that they need to develop that business to what they aspire to is already between their ears. And of course it bloody isn't. We really do not make it on our own. So as I said, you're going to need a cheer squad. You're going to need some group of peers who understand. We were talking earlier, Ben, about B&I, and one of the benefits of those sort of groups is that it's a circle of people who get it, who know where you are and where you've been and where you're going. By and large, full-time employees do not get what it's like to be in business. They just haven't experienced that headspace. For us, the highs are higher, the lows are lower, the world looks very different. It's very important to have those people around you who will understand you. You will need help with mindset and attitude, and that's the coaching part of it. Because, and I think we've touched on this already this evening, you'll need a great faith in what you're doing. You'll need to be able to persist in what you're doing against the no's of all the no-sayers in the world. You've got to be able to, in the same way that you believe in your production as an artist, you've got to be able to believe that this business of yours is going to make it. It can be very, very hard to hold the faith through some of those difficult times, but that's what it takes. And mostly, the persistence pays off just beyond the point where a lot of people give up. So just holding on a little bit further, we've got a lot of people there. That's when coaches are really good. You need someone who has walked the walk, and I'm going to talk about coaching and mentoring and consulting. I don't dig big masses of definitions. I've got a degree in philosophy, I've had enough of definitions, but there are some distinctions that we'll draw which may be helpful. But someone who has walked the walk in terms of building a business is going to be an invaluable companion for you. You may pay them, or they may do it as a gesture of friendship to walk alongside you for a bit of your journey, and that will be yours. You will need strategies, tools and shortcuts, and that's more of a consulting type of input. This is on a marketing consulting basis, how do I really maximise what I'm getting out of LinkedIn or the exposure that I'm getting on TikTok, as we were talking earlier, that kind of thing. It may be, look, here's just a much better way of looking at your P&L. We'll give you much more information in much more timely manner. You'll need those tricks and tips and techniques to run your business better. You'll need experts to help you with them. You'll need role models for sure. Find them. They don't have to be here in this room, they don't have to be here in this town. But you will need someone who has done it and who's honest enough about how they've done it, so that whether you connect with them on social media or however it may be, you can go, they did that, I can do that. I can take that next step. Yeah. And yes, I'll come back to it. You will need a shot at the grow on some days. I'm worried about that. Go to the next slide, please. So, the question of coaching is a bit of a mini splendid thing. Pardon the pun with the right. You all know why I did that. But it's worth kind of thinking about what you need at a particular stage and how you're going to get it. And this is how it might usefully break down without getting hung up on definitions. A coach may not know anything about your industry, but a coach is there to provoke you and prod you and question you and lead you by the nose to do more than you were doing, or to do better than you were doing. This is exactly, if you think of a sporting coach, who've been in a seriously competitive sport, swimming or whatever it may be, you've had a coach and you both love them and hate them. I have derived a lot of benefit from a business coach, and she used to just push me off the diving board. I don't mean literally, she was a business coach, but metaphorically, she used to just push me off the diving board. And she would challenge me, and she would go, well, why that, not this? Right? The ability to ask questions in a sufficiently provoking way that it changes the way you think when you answer that question is really a basic and invaluable coaching skill. So that's what you're looking for in that kind of space. Not an expert, but a provocateur. Mentoring, for present purposes, is more about someone walking the journey with you. It's about someone who's been there, perhaps they've built a business from nothing, perhaps they've been through the difficulties, seen the hard times, and they will walk with you on that journey. And they'll share their experience and make their learning from that experience available to you. And consulting is much more about a toolkit. It's about, here's a bag of tricks, whether it's marketing, whether it's strategy, whether it's financial modelling, forecasting, whatever it is you need at a particular time. There's a bag of tricks. There's a consultant who already has that in their kit bag, and they can pull it out and say, here it is. This would be useful to you. Now, the reason I say all this has got a little bit of an agenda behind it, because actually our approach at Upland Consulting is a blend of coaching, mentoring and consulting, and that's deliberate. That's our approach. This is not trying to be all things to all people. It's just that I have never yet met a business owner who needs only one of those kinds of inputs. And since we're able to do that, that's what we make available to our clients. Even more important than any of those things, you need a community. You need people around you who can support and sustain and challenge you, whatever form that takes. Artists know this very well indeed. You think of the Heidelberg School, you think of famous things that have gone on like that, where they're kind of sparking off each other. If you ever go to Alice Springs and you have a look at the Araluen Arts Centre in Alice Springs, it is a top quality education in its own right about the evolution of Central Desert painting styles, from Albert Navajira, those very almost Western looking landscapes, to the people who worked with him and developed what he was doing, and then a whole different school of people who started up in reaction to Navajira with the Western Desert block painting style. The collection at Araluen in Alice Springs just sets that out for you. It's fascinating, fantastic. But of course what was going on there was all those people living in Hermannsburg at the old mission saw what Navajira did, started to work with it, started to experiment with it. After a little while, you get from what looked to my eyes at anyway, like very Western kind of landscape paintings, and it changes. And after a generation, that landscape is starting to look back at you. I imagine that this is what it's like to be on country for an Indigenous person. That landscape is not just a depiction that you can admire, it's talking back to you. And then you've got the whole dot painting thing coming out of the Western Desert, where they've gone from fascinating combinations to unbelievably subtle gradations across essentially an abstract painting made out of dots of colour. And it's the community of artists and creators around Hermannsburg and around the other centres out there in the desert that has made that possible. My point is simply, artists know better than anyone else the importance of community to bringing out what's in you, whether that is your art or whether that's your business. And if we can move on to the next slide, please. You will also need these things. If you're going to build a business that sustains you to the point where you can really concentrate on with your top quality time and your art, then you're going to need these. You're going to need an education in these business disciplines. We've had a bit of a start with some of them this evening. Thank you. And more. That's an open-ended agenda, but it's a pretty good shopping list to start with. At the same time, you will need to learn things about yourself and about the response to stuff that happens to you, and about your mindset that you bring to your business. And if you want to talk about courage, then Silas unfortunately had to go, but Silas is the person to talk to about courage. I don't know if you've been following her Courage Unwrapped podcast, and she's also posting on Facebook about it. But you will need those qualities, and you will need that information about knowledge to succeed. I'm racing a little bit because I'm well aware of the time and I don't want to leave some time for discussion. So if we could just flick over, I'll nearly be here.
What was the podcast name?
You want me to email you the slides?
What was the podcast you designed this time?
What was the
podcast?
The podcast is called Courage Unravelled. Sana Turner.
What was it there? Oh, what was it there?
It's about courage, it's stories of courage. She interviews people. It's
I
not
would
just
like
about
the slides though.
Well, Sana's coming from a business perspective. That's her background. Yes, I'm happy to email the slides.
Yes.
I'll leave you a card and brochure and just let you know. Yeah. No worries at all. Okay, so when it comes to picking these people, there's a business coach on every corner, every street corner, right? There's singing all around the town, business coach and business coach. Take a little bit of care about choosing them, and to my mind, the most important thing is, are they on your wavelength? They don't have to be a candidate for your best friend, but there does have to be a level of, there does have to be a level of communication, quite deep communication with the business coach. There has to be a strong level of trust there. They're going to provoke you to go further than you thought you could go, and they know you've got it in you, and it has to be a working relationship that works for you. If you're simply not communicating, then they're not the right person for you. Look at their testimonials, because there is just nothing like what someone else has said for guidance in terms of how that person actually works and how well they work. If they haven't got testimonials on their website, then ask yourself why. And are they actually on your wavelength? Are they speaking your language? If I look around for business coaches for me, and I need a business coach as much as anyone else does in business, I'm currently between coaches and nothing. But I look at some of the material that's out there and their language doesn't gel, the personal style doesn't gel. In other cases, say, well, I think I could really work with that person, I think we could understand each other well. So think in those terms. Just because they call themselves a business coach doesn't mean they get the business coach from you. And you do get what you pay for. But if you've ever studied martial arts, you'll know that what you should be concentrating on as a beginning white belt is very different from what you should be concentrating on when you've got a red or a blue or a black belt. So right now, if you had 30 grand burning a hole in your back pocket, you could spend that, and you could spend the weekend with a very high-powered, highly regarded business coach. And it would be a waste of 30 grand in most cases. It certainly would be in my case, because you're not at that belt level. Right? What you need to be able to understand is, at white belt, you're focusing on some basics and you're getting better, and the gradations in the belts are there to tease you into getting better and better. But if you try to jump, you're just going to get kicked in the head. I don't say that to be discouraging, but I'm saying for self-awareness and for getting the most out of what you invest in coaches, consultants and mentors, be aware of that factor. I think that's about it. I think the next one is just the other way around, isn't it? Yeah. So, we'll pass these out. There's only 20 years, there's not enough to go around there. We'll do the card edition.
Just a question about, what would your advice be about how much time you might spend initially getting all the foundations of your business, getting it organised, versus actually doing the art and creating the art? Because it seems to me like there's a lot of that at the beginning, as you can imagine, and not so much is that what we should expect, that there'll be a lot of input into that other stuff which perhaps we don't much like, but then further down the track we can be more creative? How would you balance those two things? Because I feel like we're not doing a lot of creating, I'm doing a lot of foundation stuff.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because I'm just not making time for creating, or maybe that's a natural part of the process. I don't know what you say.
That may be what you need to concentrate on at this stage.
Yeah.
And I couldn't give you some specific guidance on that unless I know more about exactly where you're at.
Yeah.
But certainly, I mean, doing the business thing should not be taking up most of your time. Doing the art should be taking up most of your time, and potentially engaging with your customers and explaining, presenting the art. But you will find that it's a journey. You'll find that at some stages of that journey you're focusing on developing the business, because that's what needs to happen. And that's where the opportunity is at the moment. And at other times you'll be just full-time producing your art. Right. Can't give you a specific answer except to say that it depends. It's really as far as
I'm still not 100% sure the difference between a coach and a consultant.
Okay. If you go definition hunting, you can spend all night on that. The working definitions that I'm offering, because there's work for us, So your coach is there to provoke you into doing better than you thought you could. Your mentor is someone who has been there and can walk with you on that journey. So that might be an ongoing relationship where you talk to them once a month, something like that. The consultant could be the same person, but it's a different approach. It's where I'm saying to you, this is something that I have found really useful. I can help you implement it in your business. So it's not just sort of moral support, I get you, this is, it's more, here's something from my toolkit, you're welcome to use it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Is it enough?
I have one more question.
Yes, good.
I have a lot of mentors in my life,
Mm.
quite informally. Like, how formal do you suggest I take through as mentoring people in my life? So, I mean, because I work here at the gallery, and I see people I've worked for, and other artists that I'm in like a friend relationship with, and we talk about. But there are people who I can identify as signifying mentors. But do I approach them and say, hey, I think that you're a mentor to me, I admire you and I appreciate your advice. Do I go and say, would you be willing to mentor me, and do you expect me to pay them for their time, or how far do I take that mentoring role?
By all means ask that question. If you're feeling that they've got something to give you, then they're probably feeling something that I could give this person that would help them, from my experience. So the question will probably be welcome. If they're not, no, then no. Whether they want to be paid depends very much on their business model, and there's a lot of unpaid mentoring that goes on quite informally, and it's enormously valuable.
Yeah.
It's incredibly valuable. I think it was Richard Branson said that he would never have got to where he got to without mentors. So the mentoring relationship is quite often fairly informal, occasional chat and unpaid, or it may be more formal and more structured. Part of the program, they both work. If you're thinking of fellow artists that you would like to learn from about, maybe not just about the art, but about making a business of the art, by all means approach them.
Okay.
So if I buy you a coffee, can I pick your brains for an hour? And maybe that leads on to an ongoing conversation with them.
Okay.
But grab all that you can, it's gold. People are happy to share that gold because, frankly, it's a really good feeling to help someone.
There's something that I found out about Australian culture that I need with someone who's not Australian to tell me, is that Australians love to share knowledge. This is a Japanese woman who was saying that in Japan it's about suppression. And so she learned so much about her artistic skill from being Australian and showing interest and talking to Australian artists, because people just want to share the knowledge. And I found that really interesting.
It's fantastic, isn't it? It's a wonderful thing. Yeah. I'm not familiar enough with Japanese culture really to respond to that, but I certainly do know that you will meet a lot of very willing yeses if you say to the right people, could I spend some time with you? Could I learn a bit from you? For sure. Anything else?
I just wanted to say, the last year for my business journey, I think a lot of what Wisdom Ian shared, I can relate to pretty much everything he shared there. And if you're relatively new business, soak what he's just shared up there and really keep in the back of your mind for every decision you make. There's a lot of gold in that, especially around mentoring and consulting coaching. Like a year ago, I had none of that, and now I would say there's a tribe of people around me that I can turn to for advice, and kick up the arse if required, good feedback as well. And your ego goes out the bloody window. You have to be whatever's coming in, accept it. I think Ian's covered some real great stuff there. So, I'd recommend play that back in your mind this evening and keep that in the forefront of anything you make business-wise going forward. Thank you.
Thanks.
Just to touch on what Carl said as well, my bookkeeper this morning said to me, oh, when I first engaged with you, I wanted to show you how to run all the accounts, you could do all your BAS and all of that Excel. And I said, no, that's not happening. you email me at the end of every month and say, reconcile your zero, and I quickly jump in and go, oh, sorry, don't hit me. And then you send me the BAS and I pay it. That's all I want. I want you to do everything for me because I'm not wasting my time away from my business doing something that you can do better. It's about having that tribe and that community, those people that, as much as he was being like, oh, I want to try and save you some money, I was like, the reassurance of you doing it versus me wasting my time is worth 10 times more than me paying you.
Absolutely. Outsource the stuff you hate.
Oh yeah, big time.
And how do you do that? You do that through having one of the things that you've said, a consultant or something, you find out how to outsource.
Sorry, say again?
Is it a consultant that you'd go to find out about outsourcing? If that's the area that your business has now come to, where you're spending hours doing stuff that you absolutely hate for a small part of time for the bit that you love, who do you go to help you find out how you're going to outsource those things?
That's a really good question. And in my case, part of the answer is there's a lady actually based in Margaret River who specialises in remote virtual assistants. So she manages the people in the Philippines who do the bookkeeping or whatever it is you want to get rid of. And I'm going to go and have a deep and meaningful conversation with her very soon because there's too much of that still in my business.
Right.
But look, it depends. There's a book. It's called The 25-Year Plan, which suggests that you take a look at what you spent your month doing every month and divide it into A, B, and C. So A is the stuff you love, the stuff that lights your fire. B is the stuff that you're okay doing, not too bad. C is the stuff that you would just rather not do. It's got to be done, but it gives you a shit. And then when you make your plan for the coming month, see how much of the C you can get rid of, see if you can reduce the B and just free up more time for the A. And do that again, and do it again, and do it again.
So maybe business networking is a good thing, you know, to find out how other people maybe are doing that too.
Yeah, sure.
I was going to say Facebook groups as well. Like I've reached out to a lot of people who are looking for a bookkeeper, and they're looking for people from Busselton, Bunbury, females, like whatever I'm after. It's been really helpful.
Okay, thank you.
I saw a really good webinar about what's called automation on this what's it called? Creative Plus Business, which is an arts and business business that teaches us about business. And the webinar was about how to use automation to do all the crap you don't want. And there are, the person doing it specialises in teaching businesses how to automate, how to use all these newfangled technologies to automate things that takes away a lot of the crap.
Like, so an auto reply maybe, you know what I mean? Like you get contacts on Facebook and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, so you can automate all that. And I haven't applied it, I've watched it, but I was interested in it. So it's on my to-do list, but it's like, if you go onto the website Creative Plus Business, there's just so much free stuff, and then you also have business consultants related specifically to specialise and things like that. But there's just a lot of webinars and things like that.
And there's also things like Fiverr, you know.
What is that? I've heard
Well,
of
it doesn't cost $5. But not much more. Like, yeah, but you can get them to do all, like, you know, anything, pretty much web designers, graphic designers.
I just need to
Just before we go, sorry.
I just thinking, sorry, just wanted to offer something that I noticed with businesses, not some expert or anything, but just that when you start your own business, right, everyone's talked about passion and who you are and the relationships that you build is key. And what I've noticed in businesses is when they try to grow very quickly or success comes and they want to expand out, it falls over. And the reason being is that when you start to bring in staff, they don't carry the same passion or the same commitment, values, whatever. Yeah, so I guess it's just about that. You've got a dream and it's like you have that, you carry that, but it's finding, like you said, your community that's going to keep that growing in a way that's positive.
The game changes radically when you have staff, as we know, certainly, and it's not necessarily the end of the line, it's the beginning of quite a different line. I spent most of my time in business purely on my own. I used to believe that the employee-employer relationship was inherently disempowering on both sides. I now have 4 staff.
So you're pitching, you're very happy surrounded by those ladies.
But it changes my headspace and it changes my daily work completely, having those people around me in a different way. I did just want to make sure before we wrap up, and I'm sure you're wanting me to shut up now, but I'm happy to match Mitchell's offer. We don't generally do free consulting, but if you want to buy me a coffee and pick my brains, grab a card or grab a brush and mention that you were here this evening,